Like an old movie removed from the frame, I am floating and looking for someone to blame. Won't you project me on the walls of your heart? I'm waiting for the real thing to start.
Hello, and welcome back to The Real Thing. I am your host, Joe Lawrence, and it is good to be back. Apologies for the accidental, unexpected hiatus, but things got pretty busy and some things didn't pan out the way that I thought they would, so we had to take a little bit of a break. But that's life. C'est la vie. Que sera, sera. But we're back and we're ready to do some more episodes, and I'm feeling good and excited and ready to do that. We have some really fun stuff coming up, which I'm not quite ready to announce, but I guess that's a fun tease that there is some fun stuff coming to you over the summer. And we have a couple more fun episodes coming before that happens, but I'll just continue to be vague until I have everything ready to tell, and that's going to be really exciting, so just be prepared for that. So this podcast is an extension of Bergen Film Club, which is an independent cinema in Bergen, Norway. The film club's main goal is giving a voice to those who deserve it, revealing insights into unknown cultures and showing awesome movies. And in this podcast, I talk about the films included in the film club's extensive program of films past, present, and future. And today, I don't think that I'm actually doing that. We're doing something a little different. Today I was joined by two of Bergen Film Club's board members to talk about a inner conflict that has been running in the film club for the past semester or so. We are particularly talking about the director Brian De Palma. This semester we did a double feature evening of Brian De Palma where we showed Femme Fatale and Raising Cain, and there was some discourse there that the person who showed it, Bendik, friend of the podcast, he loves De Palma, probably one of his favorite directors, and I believe Scorcese is his favorite, but he was so excited to show this. But then we have Martin on the other hand, who is a De Palma hater. So that's the vibe of today's episode, is that those two are gonna come together and talk about why they do and don't like De Palma, and kind of get into the discussion of what it is to not like a director, or mainly a discussion of how do maybe slightly controversial films fit into our modern day view of cinema and film, which was really cool. It was a lot of fun to moderate and just sit and watch them talk. They have great banter. And yeah, once again, hyping up something that you're going to hear in like 2 minutes. So that's going to be a lot of fun. But first, in classic The Real Thing fashion, we'll start with some recommendations. Going all over the place, kinda. So, but it was okay, and there was some pretty gnarly, nasty visuals, which I'm always a fan of. I love gore and stuff, so that was kind of cool. I watched Stoker, which is a Nicole Kidman and Mia Wasikowska movie directed by Park Chan-wook, which I think is one of his very few English movies. And that was pretty cool, but also kind of strange and not entirely fleshed out. And I also watched, I'm really wrapping these off, but I honestly haven't really been doing much else apart from being at school or playing the new Zelda game. So my time has been occupied. But I also watched Clock, which is a brand new film from 2023, directed by Alexis Jacknow, and it follows a woman sort of on the eve of her 37th or 38th birthday. She has never wanted children, but then sort of like the pressure of her friends and her husband make her decide to want to have children. She goes into this sort of like experimental thing so that she can get pregnant, basically. Uh, it wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible. And I thought that the lead actress, Diana Agron, who you may know from Glee, she was great. I thought she gives. I saw her in Shiver Baby quite recently, and she gives like such muted but very emotional, poignant uh, delivery, I guess, and acting. And I thought that she was great. She was absolutely. I mean, she was the lead, but she was absolutely the highlight of the film. But yeah, that was it was good. I thought that she was really like the shining star of that. But oh, okay, I have to talk about this actually. I saw Beau is Afraid, and I'm going to talk about this maybe next week a bit more. Yeah, ooh, that's a tease. You don't know, you don't get to know how I felt about it. Uh, but I loved it. I loved it basically. But we'll talk about that next week. But I don't know if that was recommendations, but that was yeah. I've been very busy. I've been doing jellyfish shit, and I mean I've done nothing this week apart from play Zelda really. But yeah, it's summer is potentially here in Bergen, and the allergies are flying. They are real. My nose is blocked, and I'm ready to do some podcasting. So let's jump into the episode. I think that we're just going to jump straight in with the interview because I think that it sort of speaks for itself. We're talking about Brian De Palma, whether he is an amazing, influential director or someone who doesn't deserve a place in our film zeitgeist of 2023. Yeah, so I'm sitting with Bendik Vigsnes and Martin Haugen, yeah, from BFK. And yeah, so today we're going to be talking about Brian De Palma. The two guys that we have here both have pretty different opinions on the director. Now we'll try and keep my opinion to a minimum, so I don't have any influence over the conversation. Yeah, so I thought that we'd just get started by you two telling your own personal relationship to De Palma and why you've formed your own opinion about this director the way that you have.
Eldest first.
We're doing the eldest first.
Yes.
The eldest and wisest,
Sure.
which is me, Bendik. Should just tell our listeners that today in Bergen there's a cup finale. Well, technically the cup finale is in Oslo, but Bergen is going crazy.
Yeah.
Everybody's out to watch the football match, and we, like the nerds we are sitting in Martin's living room to talk about an 80-year-old director.
Is he 80?
Yeah, I think
Oh.
so. Isn't it?
83.
83, wow. I really want him to make one final movie.
That's why you resonate with him so much.
Oh, the trash talk is beginning. I hope
Sorry,
that you're a good
sorry.
moderator, Joe.
Sorry.
It's going to be a pain to edit this. All right, yeah. It's going to be very stream of consciousness. No, but my relationship with De Palma started... What was the first movie I watched with De Palma? I think it may have been Mission Impossible with Tom Cruise, which I thought was really cool at the time. And from there, I think I went on to The Untouchables, which is also a really good gangster movie, starring Kevin Costner and Sean Connery. And it took a while before I discovered that De Palma also had a hand in genre films. Because I watched Carrie, and I didn't like Carrie. I like it now. I didn't like it then.
What changed?
I was just too young, I think. And I think I expected more when I was younger. When I watched it, I was in my phase where I wanted the movie to be as shocking as possible or as gory as possible. And to me, it was just slow. I didn't appreciate all the cinematic techniques and flourishes that he puts in the film. So I was just waiting for the inevitable chaos.
Yeah.
And once that came, I didn't care.
Oh.
But then I watched it again as a grown-up. And I loved every minute of it, and I loved the climax, the way he uses split screen and all that stuff. But I'm trying to remember the first genre film. Like, he's known for his thrillers. De Palma is known for like doing two types of films. He does his mainstream, big Hollywood blockbusters like Mission Impossible, The Untouchables, Carlito's Way, and then he uses whatever money and critical clout he gets from that to fund his more personal projects. And it's in those personal projects that's tend to be the most divisive. That's where he does his Hitchcockian thrillers, because De Palma's favorite director is Hitchcock,
Yeah.
which will surprise no one who has seen his films.
No one.
Because he
At all.
borrows. Some would say he even steals.
Yeah,
Mm.
Rebecca.
Hmm?
Rebecca.
Does he steal from Rebecca?
Yeah.
In which film?
The sexual ones.
Oh, I don't know. That was a...
That's like as unspecific as you can.
That was extremely unspecific.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to explain this to you, Martin. He saw Vertigo, and that's when he decided that cinema should be his forte. Before that, he was a science geek.
Mhm.
He saw Vertigo, and that kind of inspired him to become a filmmaker. And after he did some independent movies, comedies, what have you, he veered into thrillers with sisters, which is his riff on Psycho. And then later he did Obsession, which is his riff on Vertigo.
Yeah.
And he's been riffing on some of the more famous Hitchcockian films, mainly Psycho and Vertigo. He borrows elements from those and he puts those into his thrillers. Now that I think about it, I think the first genre film I saw from De Palma is Raising Cain.
Oh.
Which is weird, because that should be the last one you see, because
Yeah.
it's kind of his greatest hits.
I think Dress to Kill should be the last one.
We'll get into that. We'll get into that. But Raising Cain, I bought it. I found it in like a DVD bargain bin. I bought it for like 50 kroners.
Mhm.
And all I saw was De Palma, and I knew De Palma from the big movies that I'd seen, The Untouchables, Scarface, and all that stuff. I bought it, knew vaguely about John Lithgow, watched it, and it just blew me away. I just thought, this is so cool.
Complete opposite. And
I was so into that film, and I was so captivated by that film. And that's when I noticed De Palma's cinematic style, I guess, because sure, I noticed it in The Untouchables and I noticed it in Mission Impossible, but it was to the forefront in Raising Cain. He employed all his tactics, the way he generates suspense from really small things. Although, I mean, I guess he's famous for the scene in Mission Impossible where Tom Cruise drops to the floor and the speed of sweat.
Yeah, the needle.
So so he's known for taking these little moments and just milking them into this huge suspense sequence. But yeah, that was my introduction, and after that kind of set me on my path where I kept discovering De Palma films and all his genre outputs, including the one we're going to be talking about now.
Yes.
I was obsessed for a while when I was around 19 years old. I tracked down everything I could of De Palma.
Yeah.
But how about you, Martin? What is your relationship with De Palma?
So I am significantly younger than you.
Significantly? You want to do the numbers on that one?
No, that's fine. But my original relationship was, I think, 15 to 18 when I first started really like trying to analyze and get into film and the history of all of it. And going through like a cliche list of like top hundreds or whatever, and then seeing Scarface, and you hear the name all over the place, or a Carrie, and so I saw them, but I saw them originally as their own separate things. I hadn't gotten into like going through a director's library or analyzing what the two films. It was just I saw two classics, and I don't remember much of them. It's many years ago. But what I do remember is, I think your first take to that it didn't catch me originally at first. I should have rewatched them for today.
Mm-hmm.
I should have rewatched all of them. It didn't originally catch me. Carrie, because when I saw the original Carrie was around the time the remake came out.
Oh.
Yeah, and
That's a shitty one, isn't it?
I haven't seen it.
I think De Palma is quoted in his documentary. There's a documentary called De Palma, which I recommend
you've
to
talked about this.
everyone
Yeah,
who wants
yeah,
to know
yeah.
more about De Palma. It's great, even if you don't like De Palma. It's
Yeah.
a great documentary.
Our host says it's not great. our host said the remake is not great.
Yes. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
the remake. Yeah, I thought you were
Yeah.
talking about the
Have you seen it?
documentary. No.
No.
But De Palma is.
Is that out
quoted.
of pride?
Yeah, I do. I just have no interest in watching it. And
Yeah.
De Palma even comments on it in his documentary, say that it's funny that you can take the same source material and then make something that doesn't work at all.
Yeah.
I don't remember the exact quote, but he like disses on it.
Because it's a novel, right? Most of his films
it's
are
based,
novels.
No.
No?
But Carrie is based on Stephen King.
Yeah, that's King. Yeah. So yeah, I saw them. Didn't really catch me at the time. I was a really sci-fi geek, fantasy, very typical teenage. Cut this. Yeah, typical teenage boy. I wanted to watch Star Wars and Lord of the Rings, and then I started to branch out to see more. Yes, cinematography, classics, and such. But it was only until like the recent 3 or 4 years that I got more into him. So still haven't seen Carlitos Way, like Mission Impossible. I rewatched all of them. That was fun. I think that's one of the most like popcorny films he's made. Yeah, and it shows.
Yeah, it was. He did it because he needed a hit.
Yeah.
He wanted
Yeah.
to
Like
show his talents
Yeah,
to this big movie like he normally does.
it worked.
It worked.
Yeah. But then I think it's 3 years ago now. Cinemateket Bergen showed Dress to Kill.
Yeah, they did the whole De Palma thing.
They did. Oh, I
I
only
think
saw
they
Dress to.
showed Body Double as well, and maybe Sisters.
I might have seen Body Double. I don't remember. But I very, very clearly remember Dress to Kill. Because I had no idea what I was going in for. I saw the synopsis and the genres was like, oh yeah, thriller, crime, 80s, right?
Yeah, 1980.
1980, yeah. Completely hated it with my entire body. I have not become angry of many films. There are very few films that make me physically angry. But I remember going back and having to be like 2 or 3 days later, having to be like, just so everybody knows, I really hate this. This is to a point where I was pissed. I remember seeing it with my friend, and she was laughing her ass off because an hour later, on our way home, I had to poke her and be like, that was painful. And when was this? Yeah, I think this was 2020 pandemic, like 10 people in the cinema. And then after we had the double screening, I started to appreciate how he builds suspense a bit more, especially from Femme Fatale, which is a film I can watch. As you said earlier on, when you first originally saw the films, from when you rewatched them, you were more open to how he sets up his characters, how he frames them, and the specific scenes where he reveals information to you. It is incredible. Yes, but in the perspective of these characters, because I love John Lithgow, dreadful in Raising Cain.
I completely disagree.
I know, we talked about this. It's because the whole trope of evil alter ego twin, spoilers, it feels like a 10-year-old sitting there like, oh, what should the evil alter ego twin be? Oh, he should twirl his mustache and he should talk like this. Meh, I'm evil. Meh.
But Martin, it's a black comedy. Did you not get that?
That doesn't
Did
mean
that fly over
evil
your
means
head?
meh, I smoke cigarettes and I smile with it.
But it's supposed to be funny.
It's not funny. It's just weird.
Well, maybe it wasn't funny to you, but it's supposed to be funny. It's De Palma riffing on himself.
That's
Now I have
your
to be careful
opinion.
not to make this into a Raising Cain discussion, but yeah, Raising Cain is probably one of his most divisive films.
Yes.
And I have to tell you, I'm surprised. I was sure it was going to be the reverse, that you wouldn't like Femme Fatale.
Oh no, Femme Fatale was
And-
the suspense and the details you could catch, but then it went around each other, and the language. We didn't have subtitles though, so.
Well, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we've gone into the reason for that. We're not going to do that again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when that movie finished, I was looking in the mirror. I was like, did I like this? What the fuck is going on? And then Raising Cain started, and like within the 5 minutes, I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, that makes sense.
So what we can glean from this is that you do not respond well to De Palma's more overt genre outings.
No, I don't.
When he does his more stylistic exercises, even though Femme Fatale is a stylistic
It is.
exercise to be sure, and it has a lot of the same tongue-in-cheek humor that Raising Cain has. I guess
I think
Raising Cain is more high camp.
Yes.
Which I assumed you would like.
I didn't.
Because you strike me as a guy who like campy movies.
It depends. I think that it was the time you got with the characters before you were on how you were able to connect with them.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've figured out for the past few years that my favorite films are often genre, and often campy, but it's on. How do I say this? Films that try to catch the human condition. And I think that's why I love sci-fi from the 80s. I like a lot of slower things where you really get to spend time with the character, and you get to experience them in a situation that, even though that specific situation isn't relatable to you, you can relate to a situation, and that's what I've resonated with. And for Raising Cain, it took me 10 minutes to be like, I don't care about this man at all, and I think that just threw me off.
Well, you don't necessarily have to care about him. You're just supposed to enjoy the film, enjoy all the stylistic flourishes that De Palma puts in there. But that's made me think, and I may be completely wrong on this one, but maybe the new generation of film fans, some of them, maybe not all of them,
Careful.
may not resonate
No, I'm kidding.
that much with De Palma, because I heard several people when we had our double screening, they criticized like, every scene was so slow, man. Why did he spend so much time taking the camera back and forth?
Yeah.
And that's like, De Palma's been quoted on how he wants the audience to know where everything is.
Yeah.
He sets up a world.
Get them
the
into
audience
the shots.
gets acclimatized to the scene, know where everything is, and then he starts carefully turning up the tension.
Yeah.
And it struck me that maybe some of, and I'm not sure if the crowd at BFK is like representative for the world, but at least they're representative for our crowd.
Yes, yeah.
And that seemed to tire someone.
That I don't get.
I don't get that either.
No.
The same crowd can watch Memoria
Yes, yeah. Or like
and not get bludgeoned to death by
my favorite
boredom.
film of 2022 was After Sun, which is the most calm, slowed, experienceful film where you just observe a father and a daughter on vacation. And that hit me so hard. But so the pacing, I don't think that really matters, because what De Palma does in these films are masterful. So I'm not really sure what the divide is there.
To me, just and I just base this on like the few impressions that I gathered post screening.
Yeah.
But it seemed to be like, especially from the young ones, that they felt bored watching the ways that De Palma builds suspense.
Another
which is, I mean, De Palma goes back to the famous Hitchcock quote, which I think, this may be wrong, but I think Hitchcock said this to Truffaut in one of their conversations that's been recorded, but I could be wrong about that. But I know Hitchcock has had like this whole story about how you can show a scene of two men chatting in a restaurant, and there's a bomb under the table, and the bomb blows up after the the men have had a conversation. That's a surprise that catches the audience, like, whoa.
Yeah.
But if you show the bomb at the beginning of the scene, you have a much more elegant structure, and you can build suspense gradually because you're letting the audience in on what's going on. And De Palma has based his whole filmography around that same concept.
Yeah.
He shows the audience carefully.
Yes, very carefully.
Every element in every scene.
Like in Just to Kill, when you see the little glint of light on the knife, and then there's like a 10-minute suspense where they just talk through a mirror. That is amazing. And but why doesn't that translate to? Because the reaction I got from we had the double screening was people getting up and laughing and saying that was fun. Not that people were bored. But you can have fun and not think something is good, no?
Like I said, I think a lot of people had fun probably, but there were some people who thought it was boring. Some people thought Femme Fatale was boring and then had more fun with Raising Cain, and then vice versa.
Yes,
Um,
yeah.
I guess.
I think, Joe wants to say something.
Well, I was De Palma virgin, I suppose,
Yeah.
before I saw any of these films, but Bendik brought them
It's
to
very- yeah.
to
It's
the
very
film
fitting
club.
for the themes.
But there was I mean, I kind of didn't know anything about him. I didn't know that he made Carrie. I didn't know that he made Scarface. And I think it was like a good introduction, a good education into who he was as a director. And kind of the more films that I've then seen of him, I kind of think that he is very good at what he does.
Well, after if you follow us, you've probably seen that after our double screening, we had a vote, and the people, the audience, voted in the mad opposite from me, Bendik's side. So the audience likes De Palma. I still haven't exactly put my finger on why I don't, but it's fun. I think a little part of me is like, it's fun to hate on to be the guy, but it's I can't deny as we had a little talk about this before we started recording. I can't deny the impact and the mark he has set himself on, especially Western cinema. That is undeniable, but especially for today, with where I think cinema is turning into more like the world of literature, where there is so much being produced, and you have so many different varieties. And I know a big director made a whole movie on an iPhone camera, and it's getting harder and harder to know what to see in general. Streaming services, festivals, whatever. Anyone can pick up a camera and make something amazing. And I think that has affected a lot of those directors a lot on their impact today versus like 10 years ago, when it was equally important, I guess, for you say on how he sets up for history and coming out of Hitchcock and stuff like that, where I think today, don't really know how to say this. You know what I mean? Just end there.
I do not, Martin.
No.
What are you on?
But I kind of understand there's like, there was fewer voices then, and it's very clear to sort of follow a line of influence.
Yes.
Whereas now it's like a huge saturation of like anyone has the opportunity, and there's not so much these, like De Palma came out in a time that was like the new wave of legendary directors like Scorcese, Spielberg, and De Palma. So I think that's what you're saying?
Yes, that is what I'm saying.
Yeah, so it's like the impact of a director is much less now.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah.
That's why these old, quote-unquote, old directors don't have such a standpoint, except the ones who are still alive, like Scorsese.
Even the biggest directors today, I feel it's not in the zeitgeist for as long and as hard that it was earlier.
Okay. I think it's time to get into sort of what the meat of the interview, what I wanted to talk about. As we've mentioned it a few times, it's De Palma's controversial film, I guess, if they're not all controversial. The 1980 Dressed to Kill.
Yes.
The genre word that you can use to describe all of De Palma's films, erotic.
Yeah.
Yep. This is an erotic psychological thriller film. Psychosexual that depicts the events leading up to the brutal murder of a New York City housewife before following a sex worker who witnesses the crime and her attempts to solve the crime with the help of the victim's son. And it was well received, I think. Oh, that's kind of what we saw in the research. But numerous critics have since said that this movie is perpetuating the transphobic myth that trans people are mentally ill, predators. We've quoted this activist group, Women Against Violence in Pornography and Media, and their quote said, "The distorted image of a psychotic male transgender person makes all sexual minorities appear sick and dangerous, and just generally that it sort of fed into this long, ongoing idea that was included in a lot of films that a man having a woman side is
Buffalo Bill. It's a good
yeah
example.
exactly so
Yeah.
like Psycho, Silence of the Lambs. They're saying that De Palma is just kind of adding to this this narrative that transgender people are mentally ill. But in 2016, I have a quote from De Palma. He said, "I don't know what the transgender community would think of the film now. Obviously, I realize that it's not good for their image to be transgender and also be a psychopathic murderer.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the perception passes with time. We're in a different time now." He added that he was glad that the film had become a favorite in the gay community, which he attributed to the film's flamboyance.
That's a very sweet quote.
He's a really sweet guy.
Yeah,
I think you would be, if
getting
you've seen
this
an
idea,
interview,
yeah.
you'd be surprised by. He's just like a nice old dude who loves the cinema.
Ah, okay, that
Yeah.
makes me happy.
Mhm. Yeah, he's really chill, and this is kind of what we've seen throughout all of the research that we've done is that, you know, or at least I can say that, like, he did make all these films that are like overtly sexual and kind of objectifying, and also by including what isn't correct trans terminology. But he's always very clear that it's not an opinion that he kind of upholds now. He's always very willing to, like you said, update himself and change with the time, but also reinforcing the fact that, like, these films were made in a different time. Yeah, you can go from there because I think you both have some opinions.
Well, yeah, I'll just start by saying this is probably my favorite De Palma film. I love it. I love every element of it. I think there's so many good scenes in this film, and it's just De Palma at the top of his game. And at this point, he had a little bit of a break from directing. He went into teaching for a while at a film school, where he met Keith Gordon, who he would cast in Dressed to Kill as the teenager.
Yeah, and then Michael Caine is Elliot.
Michael Caine plays Elliot, Dr.
Yeah.
Elliot, Sam Elliot, and or is it Sam Elliot?
I just remember Doctor.
Because Sam Elliot is an actor,
Yeah.
but he might also be called Sam. I can't really remember. And of course, Nancy Allen.
Nancy Allen.
Nancy
Yep.
Allen. And also, of course, the great Angie Dickinson, who
Yeah.
plays the initial main character of the film, who we follow for a good 40 minutes plus before she's eventually killed. And you know, he's been quoted on saying, like, that's again, he borrows from Psycho.
Yeah.
You introduce a main character and then you kill the main character off 40 minutes into the film. And it should also be said, like, this movie, Dressed to Kill, it's a psychosexual thriller, like you said. One of what it's also been called is one of the American giallos. And giallo was an Italian subgenre of mystery thrillers that incorporated sex and horror and violence into their thrillers. They were really big in the 60s and 70s. Like one is Blood and Black Lace by Mario Bava, and Dario Argento, of course, did a bunch of giallos. He did Bird with a Crystal Plumage. He did Deep Red. And they all kind of share this trope that there's usually, it's not always, but usually there's this outsider that comes in and witnessing a brutal murder, and then the outsider goes on his own to investigate what's happening. And the killer often wears black gloves. And in this movie, Dressed to Kill, there's also a killer with black gloves and wielding a razor. And there's also usually a lot of violence towards women, a lot of nudity. And De Palma has been one of the controversies with this film was, of course, the violence towards women. He was criticized for that. But the irony is that De Palma has very often been criticized and gotten in fights with the ratings board, because America has this own ratings board that are really strict with, you could say they're more strict with sex than with violence, but they don't like violence either. And De Palma has gotten into some ferocious fights, ironically, for scenes that are not that graphic, that leaves a lot of the actual violence to your imagination. Like there's the famous the shower scene in Scarface, where it's not an actual shower scene, but it's a guy who gets cut up with a chainsaw in a bathtub.
Yeah.
And you don't see anything. You just see the saw going down, you see some blood on a face, but that was enough to piss off the ratings board. And there's a scene in Body Double where a woman is killed by a killer wielding this gigantic power drill, and he drills her, literally. And you don't see the actual drilling. And it's framed like that. It's he frames it with two legs standing in the screen, and then the drill comes down from between his legs. So it's literally framed in that way to invoke that feeling. But you don't see anything of the actual murder. You just see a drill going through a ceiling and some blood falling down.
Yeah.
But that was enough to piss them off, even though all the violence was in their minds.
Is it because that is more efficient?
Yeah, because whatever you produce in your mind is a lot more scary.
Yeah.
A lot more shocking. And in Dress to Kill, ironically, it's maybe his most graphic murder, I think.
Yes.
There is murder in The Fury, his telepathic horror film, which is even more graphic. But Dress to Kill is probably, when Angie Dickinson gets killed in the elevator, is probably the most brutal killing he's done.
Actually, I have a pretty good quote in relation to his violence against women. Accusations, I guess. Not that he's committing it, but he makes it.
Yeah.
We have Julie Solomon wrote in like an article that De Palma is frequently accused of being a perverse misogynist, and that he kind of is getting off at the idea of these women getting killed. To which he responded, quote, "I'm always attacked for having an erotic, sexist approach, chopping up women, putting women in peril. I'm making suspense movies. What else is going to happen to them?"
Yeah.
That is a very good quote. I like De Palma. He's always so refreshingly honest.
But there could be a lot of situations where a woman could get brutally murdered, but it's the context.
Yeah, it is, and he always there are some violence toward women in his films, but there's also violence towards men, and usually the women are a lot, the female characters are a lot cooler than the male characters in his films.
Usually his male characters just get shot.
Yeah, they're pathetic. Like the main character in Body Double he's a creep.
Yeah,
he's a pervert. That's what he is. And De Palma has always had a knack for casting these really cool female characters in his films.
But it's still this weird thing of women suffering, even though all the men are idiots.
Yeah, but men suffer too in his films.
Not as much.
Well,
No,
I wouldn't say that though.
No.
I mean, in The Fury, a guy gets his head explodes. That's a man.
Really?
Yeah.
No.
Mission Impossible, Emilio Estevez gets a metal rod through his face.
Yeah, because the main thing I have with De Palma is not the context or the subject matter. It is the way he gives us the information. I find it cheesy and at some points just annoying.
Well, was it the twist in Dress to Kill? Was it the twist, the reveal of the killer that made you angry?
No, the little things.
What little things?
Like the bad guy has to wear black because he's a bad guy.
No, but that is part of the style. It's a
yeah,
giallo.
I know. Or the gloves or the light on the knife. It's cool, but it feels. I feel that he is telling me, "You're stupid. You won't get this unless I make it really obvious who's the killer."
Well, yeah, and I'll give you that. Like we get a scene at the end of the film after they reveal who the killer is. Which is really clumsily handled, where basically it's just exposition. It's just characters explaining the whole plot to make sure the audience is caught up.
Yes.
But that is the same thing that Hitchcock does in Psycho.
Yes.
Which he was I'm not sure if he was studio mandated, but at least they put a scene in Psycho to make sure the audience would get it, because the twist at that time was not done before.
Well, yeah.
So they had to like let the audience in on what the hell is the deal. And De Palma does the same in Dress to Kill, and I agree that scene is probably my least favorite.
But I feel it's the same in.
Even though I think that he sets up a pretty good mystery, even though it's easy to figure out who the killer is.
to bring it back to Raising Cain again, if his alter ego was more quiet or just like maybe very similar to Lithgow's original character, that would make it a lot more suspenseful for me to watch and try to figure out who is he now, instead of, oh hey, I'm John Lithgow, and then yeah, I am evil John Lithgow. It's just and you can see this in a lot of films today actually, where you say it comes from is it's explaining what is happening to me, and I think an annoying way.
But don't you when you watch older films, isn't that like a filter you can kind of tune out?
Yeah,
because when I watch
usually.
Dress to Kill, I don't care about the sometimes hokey dialogue.
The dialogue.
De Palma is not always the greatest screenwriter. I'll say that for whoever doesn't like his. And also I think what I watch is it's just the cinematic language. Yeah. The way he sets up a shot, the way he sets up a scene. We'll get into some of the best scenes in the film, I'm sure. We'll discuss them. But I think a lot of the techniques that you call cheesy, like the flashing of the razor, the light in the razor that clues the
murder weapon.
Nancy Allen's character.
Yes,
to that there's a killer hiding behind the elevator door, and she has to get away. And that's all done in slow motion. And yes, it's probably, if you watch it with the eyes of today, it's limited by the technology of the time. But I guarantee you, if someone like, I don't know, Denis Villeneuve did that today, you guys would be fawning over it. Oh, he's so brilliant. Oh my God.
Well, yeah, if you look at like Dune, the Skarsgård's character, the Baron, it's all black and he says evil is my Dune, and like
exactly.
He's very stereotypically evil, but it isn't this twirly mustachy kind of evil.
Kind of is, though.
I wouldn't say that.
I wouldn't say Baron Harkonnen is a deep character, at least in the first film.
No. But
it's just evil.
But that's,
but again, you
like
have to attribute it to the
sadism.
style of the film. Dress to Kill is a stylistic exercise.
Yeah.
It's a mystery thriller that adheres to a certain set of rules, and it's one of the few American giallos. I can't remember the other ones, but there wasn't made that many. But the whole color scheme of the film, the visual color scheme, is basically a giallo.
I have to say, I haven't rewatched it since that dreadful day in early 2020.
But if we go back to some of the great scenes, though, I mean, we're introduced early on to Angie Dickinson, who plays this sexually frustrated woman who is unhappy in her marriage, and then she goes to Michael Caine, who's the therapist, the psychiatrist, and then after that she goes to a museum. And that scene is probably my favorite scene in the whole film. It's so good. It's basically just this long, probably 10-minute long scene where she's sitting in the museum and she's approached by this strange man, and they have this She's cruising, basically. She's cruising for a man. And without any language, with just body language and looking at the little glimpses, they kind of had this mating dance around the museum with the camera following them around. It is such a beautiful scene. It's so good. It captures the thrill of the chase in such a great way. And the sexual tension in the scene is just palpable. And I remember an interview with Angie Dickinson where she said that De Palma had her record a voiceover for that scene that would kind of like explain what she's thinking. I have to remember to get to buy this. I have to do this. Oh, look at those people over there. Yeah, because he said we need this just in case. It was like a backup.
Dumbing it down for the audience.
Exactly. Yeah. And then he said after watching the scene, he told Angie Dickinson, because she asked, okay, what about the voiceover track? And he just smiled at her and said, we don't need it.
Yeah.
Because she does it all with her face.
That's a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The same they did with Blade
He just
Runner.
wanted, in case that she didn't give a good enough performance, to communicate what he wanted the audience to understand. And it is just such a good scene, and it leads up to this great climax where she goes into the cab, they go to the hotel, and then there's this whole scene where she gets up and she writes him a note. And then she finds this note from the Department of Health saying, "You have a venereal disease." And she gets panicked, and she goes to the elevator, and then she realizes she forgot her wedding ring. So she has to go back up. The shame of having to go back to
I'm
a
rewatching
one-night
the movie
stand.
in my head
Right?
now. Yeah.
And she goes back up, and then there's the killer standing right there and
Yeah.
cuts her up in the elevator. It is such a long,
Is that with the
per
glasses
almost
and the wig?
dialogueless scene. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And oh wow, what a scene! It's pure De Palma. It's
Yeah.
it's everything he's
It's
known
more,
for.
It's more Raising Cain than. It's so polarizing because he can make these almost actiony, popcorny films,
Mm-hmm.
and then, but as you said, that is just to make his own passion projects. And then we watch these, which give a completely different vibe. So is this him expressing exactly what he wants to put on screen, like with completely unhinged?
Well, he's a technical director.
Yeah.
He's always admitted he's a technical director. He's very into how to composing a shot, how to light, how to do all this technical stuff, and the actors do their thing.
Yeah.
And Dress to Kill is a very technical film. It's structured around a twist, or several twists, and it's all about, because the story is very bare bones.
Yeah.
And the story doesn't even make that much sense, but it makes sense in the world that De Palma sets up. He sets up a world where it's believable that this detective, played by Dennis Franz, would send Nancy Allen out on this goose chase when he could easily procure it by himself. Just get a court order. Of course he would get a court order when the patient of the psychiatrist is one of the main suspects in the killing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's... But it kind of works because De Palma just sets up this world where this is happening. It's not supposed to be a real world. It's supposed to be De Palma's world. And after that we go. There are several like great suspense scenes along the way. There's a train chase where Nancy Allen runs from these guys who's trying to assault her through a train. Then she's also chased by the killer Bobby.
Now it's just you recapping the movie.
But I feel like I have to remake it for you because your
I don't remember
your
it.
mushy brain can't remember it because you were busy being angry and offended by it.
I wasn't offended, but I was angry.
Oh really? Shall we quote your? Because you said you were
I just said it was I could read
stupidest shit movie
in every possible way.
in every
And then
possible way.
update,
I'm actually angry,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That doesn't sound to me like someone who's offended, does it? Sounds like someone who's perfectly in touch with his feelings
I am.
and centered.
But I'm noticing now the problem. I don't remember this. I don't remember there's a train in it.
There is a train,
Yeah.
and De Palma is not up for. He's not adverse to repeating himself if something works. So almost the exact same train sequence he puts in Carlito's Way.
Oh.
Yeah. He likes to repeat himself since something works. He's also a scene in Dress to Kill, which is very similar to a scene in Raising Cain.
Yeah.
He just like, if this works, I'll do it again.
That's not bad though.
I watched it yesterday.
Oh, you did?
I did, and
Damn
I
it.
really liked it.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
I get that maybe it doesn't have like such a strong stance in our modern day age view.
Yeah. But I would.
But neither do a lot of films.
No. Yeah. Of
So
course.
it's
But
like,
I wouldn't say that is because of the subject matter. I would say that is because of just different time.
Mm.
Why? Because I don't dislike it because of the subject matter. Because after our double screening, the best part of that evening was staying for almost an hour after and talking to most of the audience. What do you think? And the discussions that came up, that was the best part about it. And I think that's the best part about film in general. But it's
so we should have a De Palma screening
no,
every semester.
no, no, I'm good. Okay.
Yeah.
I can't that day. I'm sorry. Yeah, fine.
Okay. I had some final quotes which I thought were pretty interesting, kind of unexpected take on De Palma's films.
Mhm.
So his films have always been interpreted in bad ways, but they've also been interpreted as feminist and examined for their perceived queer affinities. In the film comments Queer and Now and Then, column on Femme Fatale, film critic Michael Koreski wrote that De Palma films radiate undeniable queer energy, and notes the intense appeal De Palma films have for gay critics. In her book, The Erotic Thriller in Contemporary Cinema, Linda Ruth writes, De Palma understood the cinematic potency of dangerous fucking, perhaps earlier than his feminist detractors.
Yeah.
But I think I've heard as well that he's one of these. I've talked about this recently. Quentin Tarantino recently said that sex has no place in cinema and has no place in movies. It doesn't contribute anything to the plot. But I think that De Palma is one of these directors who does good sex. He's showing that life is sexy. People have sex.
Yeah.
And it is a weapon as much as it is a thing that everyone enjoys. And I think that in that regard, it's something that he's just showing as very normal, which I feel like a lot of directors do shy away from or use it as some other kind of device in a way. I do sometimes feel a bit uncomfortable in the extremely long shots of women's bodies in his movies, but then again, that's not for me.
No.
So,
well, was it Ebert who said that cinema is the art of the soul, or like it's supposed to encapsulate the human condition in every way, and sex is a part of the human condition. So even portraying it like this is portraying the human condition, I would say.
Yeah, and I think whenever he shoots his, and there's probably people who will disagree with me, but I think when he shoots, whether it be a woman showering a lot more sensually than I suspect women shower in actual life. I don't think they use the shower handle quite that way.
Saxophone in the background,
right? But I do think that there's. I don't think it's leering. Sometimes you can look at a film and you can see that this is sleazy. This is a horny director that's almost masturbating behind the camera, looking at this. But I think De Palma is. He was
so sweet.
He has a true cinematic language to what he does, and I think he tries to show it as something beautiful and not something sleazy. And I do want to get my 2 cents in, because we've been dancing around the topic of the main controversy of Dress to Kill.
Yeah.
That some probably some can take offense of, is that the killer is or explained to be this transgender person who wants to become a woman. And in the movie it's explained like when his male half takes over, when he gets aroused, he gets an erection. That's when the female side takes over to destroy that. Whenever he gets aroused, the female half takes over. And I'm not here to say that if you as a if a transgender person gets offended by that, of course you're allowed to. Everybody's entitled to be offended. But I don't think, when I read the film, it seems to me like De Palma doesn't understand it enough. I mean, he takes a concept and he makes a thriller, the way William Friedkin wanted the gay leather S&M bars to be a setting for his movie Cruising. He didn't care about how it would affect anything other thing. He just wanted an exotic backdrop for a movie. And movie.
To have like a transgender killer.
Exactly, it was. Yeah. And it's no. I think that what may be misunderstood about the film is that when I don't read the killer of this film as a transgender character, because the killer of this film clearly has a multiple personality disorder. And not transgender. He just happens to have 2 personalities. One is female, one is male. And De Palma somehow sells that in as a transgender. I don't see what the transgender thing has to do with this, because it's in reality it's just someone with multiple personality disorder.
Yeah, a silly murder plot.
So so all that other stuff, I think, is just something De Palma hooked on because he read about it and he thought, oh, this is maybe cool for a movie. Yeah. So you can call it insensitive, sure, and
it does.
You couldn't make it today, of course, but I don't think it pushes a myth on transgender people being mentally ill. I think it doesn't push that myth anything more than, say, the idea of people with multiple personality disorder being like they're portrayed in this film, or in Raising Cain, or in Psycho, or in not Silence of the Lambs, but any other films where or in Secret Window with Johnny Depp, where it's just basically a complex mental illness is reduced to you just looking in a mirror and seeing a different person, and it's just used as a twist, a disguise for a twist. And movies has been doing this for ages, simplifying complicated mental illnesses to make for a sleazy thriller. They do the same thing with mental asylums. Mental asylums over the years has been portrayed as one thing: scary places with people in straitjackets screaming and going crazy, because it's an effective tool in a horror film.
I had so many thoughts after that sentence. I think one of the main things was there is a responsibility. If you decide to, because I know Buffalo Bill has been compared to Buffalo Bill, where he, what did he do? I read in an article where he,
but Buffalo Bill isn't, if I remember both the book and the movie correctly, he isn't an actual transgender character. I think in the movie they mention it in like a sentence. In the book, it's a whole chapter dedicated to explaining why he is not an actual transgender
this urge
person. That whatever he does in the film comes from something else.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. But I still think there is a responsibility of whenever you represent something, even though that might not be the main thing of a character or a situation, or as we see in these films, the crime or the psychology behind it. I still think there is a small point of responsibility to make sure you understand the situation behind it.
Yeah, but again, we'll go back to that. It was a different time.
Yeah, but like I couldn't make a movie about, let's say, the killings in Cambodia, because I don't know anything about that. I have never been a part of it. It's not close to me, so that would just feel false.
Yeah, but that's again, this is what we're doing now. But back then, directors took an exotic topic and just made a movie. Kevin Costner made Dances with Wolves.
Yeah.
I don't see any Native American genes.
What I do
him.
like about it is it opens up good conversations. If it's for or against.
But don't you think that like the audience of today, do you think that they're grown up enough to understand that if we screen Dress to Kill, would they be grown up enough to understand that, okay, this is made from a different time? You can show this movie in a cinema without making a stance. You're not aligning with yourself with whatever is presented in the film. Or do you think that we're at that point, we have to make content warnings for everything to make sure the audience understands that this is not our policy? Which kind of angers me, but I'm an old angry man, so I'm welcome to.
I think so, because we always contextualize what we screen anyway. And like the sentence you just said, that would be a great opening, and then please let us know what you think about the film afterwards, like we did with our double screening. So, but then again, I think context is important. It's like dividing the art from the artist. It could be anything. It could be the Unabomber's manifesto, Ted Kaczynski's manifesto. It could be Hitler. It could be a Me Too actor, or it could be the subject matter of a director. I think context is so important. And now, like for our double screening, your introduction was amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was so good. You went through the history and how he made his films and why he made his films. Hearts. Sorry, interrupting. I think that opens up so much more understanding and love for both the art and the discussion. But if you just portray it as this is the message, put it into the ether, then I think it loses some of its art and some of its power. So like that's why I love us doing this episode, because it just not contextualizes it, but it gives it more meaning on why these films still should be watched, why we should talk about them, and shit like that. Yes, Joe?
I'm going to be a killjoy.
We're running out of time.
Yeah. But I just thought that was a very nice way to end. I thought you summed it up really nicely, Martin.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Martin having the last word.
Yeah.
Bendik is trash talking me from across the
Whoa, well, that was fun. I really enjoyed. Thanks so much to Bendik and Martin for joining. It was a really good discussion. I think that I'll try and do more episodes like this in the future because not that I don't love talking, but it was kind of nice to sort of take a backseat and sort of control the conversation in a way. Like my desire for control, I could really exercise over these two men. It was great. Next week, I know that I said this many weeks ago now, but we will be talking about Midsommar and about Ariosta and Beau is Afraid. So that is coming, and I think that's going to be a lot of fun. But yeah, another great episode. It's good to be back. Sorry for the hiatus. And yeah, like I said, it's got some good things coming. Exciting projects arriving soon to your ear holes. But thank you very much for listening. This has been The Real Thing. I've been Joel Lawrence. Thank you, and goodbye. This has been a Bergen Film Club production. Our music is by Wise John. Check them out on Instagram at WISEJohnOfficial. Our logo is by Pia Sofia Brentersen. This episode was produced, mixed and engineered by Joel Lawrence. Our researchers are Inke Shilprai-Ben and Mamina Nazmajid. Want to talk to us about films? Then please send us an email at podcast@bergenfilmclub.com. Follow the show on Instagram and Twitter at TheRealThingPod. Check us out on Letterboxd at BFK The Real Thing. Thank you and goodbye. Listen, follow, leave us a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, or wherever it is that you get your podcasts.